And the critic said, slightly bemused, he said, why have you got a toilet on the stage? And he said, well, we're acting against the piece. We put the thing on, but we try and destroy it as we put it on. It's deconstruction. And you know why these ideas have got a hold? Because they're bored. Because they're bored with Western culture. Since the Second World War, state funding of the arts has replaced bourgeois capitalist sort of money. It's replaced aristocratic patronage. And you can only do Shakespeare so many times. You know? And there's a great tiredness to these state institutions. And this tiredness often leads to sort of nihilism in a way. Why not just tear it all down? You know, this fuddy-duddy stuff that we endlessly have to replicate with the taxpayers' money, you know? And these ideas course through, even revived, and sort of classical theatre. Racing Shakespeare is the favourite one. At the beginning of the 20th century, Othello was always played by a white man blacked up. Olivier very famously in the 50s and thereafter. Middle of the century, always played by a black actor. Because you had to foreground the nature of race and the nature of oppression and the nature of Shakespeare's unfortunate, alienating and objectifying tendencies. Oh dear. Now, usually, Othello's played by a white actor. Because not to black up is to draw attention to the hideous racism of the piece, so that guilt should be infused in the audience for the crime of Western civilization. 9 million dead. Farrakhan says in the United States, never mind the 6, what about the 9? The 9 million who died in the Atlantic slave trade. What about us? There was a famous Richard Eyre version of The Merchant of Venice in the 1990s, when the female lead apologises for the show on stage, kneeling before the audience. Don't remember that in the text, actually. Don't remember that in the original play. And this is ironic, considering that some of these ideas have come out of this idea of extreme textual specificity. But you could always change the text when you want. It's only a text, you know, and this sort of thing. So there is a sort of comedic element to these ideas. But I assure you that if it were very instructive for everyone here to go to the Institute of Contemporary Arts, the ICA is in Pall Mall. It's near the Queen, you know, it's right in the centre of all of the establishment buildings. And it's all very nice in there, you know, all very nice mellow lighting and all this. And you go in, there's a bookshop in there. And that is very interesting, because that bookshop's like a cathedral bookshop to this type of culture. Virtually every idea, I mean, Holmes' books are all prominently displayed in that particular bookshop. All of these deconstructed, anti-identity, post-racial, non-class, non-gender specific, gender-neutral language sort of particularisms are all there, volume after volume after volume. Actually, Holmes did a book once that had sandpaper on the cover. So it would cut up all the books next to it, you see. Revenge on the book. And he'd also damage yourself when you touched it, you see. So he's attacking the reader. William S. Burroughs was once asked, what do you want to do with the reader? And he said, kill him. I want somebody to open the page and be so appalled that they virtually drop into it, you know. There was a famous moment with the 1984. Remember that? The BBC one, the one with Peter Cushing in the 1950s. There was a Mrs. Trellis of North Wales who allegedly did drop dead during the rat scene. Room 101. She was watching this on a state-subsidised channel on the BBC, art programmes on the BBC, and when O'Brien gets the rats out, you know, in the Chinese torture scene, you know, do it to Julia, you know, and that sort of thing, she just caved over, poor old Mrs. Trellis, and went straight over, and the MP was straight on the thing, he was in the Commons, saying it's disgraceful that the state broadcaster is killing its own constituents with art, you know. You couldn't make it up, could you really? But there is a degree to which the desire to attack the audience is very much part of this art. There's actually a form of art called auto-destructive art by Metzger, where the art actually blows up, or a tip of acid, a cube of acid would turn over on one of these sort of Meccano wheels, you know, one of those sort of armature things, and the tin tips up and pours acid down the front, and that sort of thing. So the art attacks you, you attack the art attacks itself. And then you buy what's left, even though what's left has been completely destroyed. These ideas actually entered into popular culture because a lot of rock bands and so on, they're made up of students who go to art colleges. And the Who used to destroy their instruments on stage. Pete Townsend, when he wasn't looking at dubious sites on the internet, was wrecking his guitar. And these guitars are expensive things, you know, and keep it plugged in. And he'd smash it on the ground and sparks will be going off. I think it's totally contrary to health and safety, personally, you know. But he'd smash the thing and it would blow up and blow across the thing, you know, and that sort of thing. And all the crowd would be chanting and this sort of thing. And this was based on the notion of auto-destructive art. But of course they were working class lads and there were dangerous moments of essentialism in the Who, because they always had the Union flag behind them when they performed. Oh, the danger of those estates, you know, more deconstruction, that's what's required. Now, Home criticised the situation because there was laws of Hegelian theory and therefore allowed certain religious notions in from the outside. There was a communist called Jean Barrot who wrote a critique of situationism. He was a later supporter of Pol Pot, but he's not heard of too much these days. Certainly wasn't being heard of if he had been Cambodian, you know. Now, Home got into trouble a couple of years ago, and Larry O'Hara, who's a sort of libertarian, anti-right-wing critic, who's prepared to be at least reasonably factual up to a point, Larry O'Hara wrote an article called Stewart Home's Fascist Friends. Because if you advocate new areas of culture, total newness, you will attract in people who don't necessarily believe in equitable variables. And he attracted certain people, certainly Richard Lawson, who's well known from the National Party and Scorpion and Perspectives, and had a website called Flux Europa, and was a left European nationalist, I think it's fair to say. He also struck up a bit of a relationship with Bill Hopkins, an old friend of mine. And there's a film, 6 minutes, of Stewart Home interviewing Bill Hopkins. It's on YouTube. Now, he's been heavily vilified for this because of an ideological detour into the concept of the new, he forgot progressive verities. And he's recovered, but you know, it's bad news to reach out to radicals before you know who they are. You can get into deep trouble doing that. And he has. Because people say, didn't he have some friends who were, that's what's remembered in this tagging era and Google your name sort of an age. Now, Home believes that everyone can create culture. Just as there are certain classical music concerts in the 1970s where the orchestra would make it up as they went along. Xenakis was another one. You would turn up and you wouldn't have a piece, you would deconstruct the music. Indeed, they would tear the music up before the performance and stamp on it. Stamp on it in a rage at the bourgeois class and that sort of thing, and then they would sort of make some music. Now, Home believes that everybody can do that. He calls it the universal proletarianization of culture. The universal proletarianization of culture. And he idolises these slightly rightist elements. He idolises these skinhead novels in the 1970s. Does anyone remember these novels by Richard Allen called Skinhead and Swayhead and She's My Bitch and all these sorts of novels that used to be read under the table in schools, you know, and were read in reformatory schools, teased in reformatory schools, you know, no reading in this borstal, you know, this sort of, and they were written by this old drunk on the South Coast called Richard Allen. And Home loves all this. And he's written several books called Red London's and the one. He's also written books that are just swear words. The C word is the title, oh yes, and the S word and the F word. These are all in Smith's. They're all in Waterston's. And he's done it because he thinks, why not? And also, I'll push distribution to such a degree that are they going to go on Radio 4 and say, well, we have books with all sorts of swear words in them, but we won't allow them on the cover. You know, no, the Royal Chamberlain lives in memory. We will not allow it on the cover. And Holmes saying, why not? Why not? Are you some bourgeois snob, mate? You know, I'm pushing this in front of you. He's also a very extreme homosexual. You would have to have this. So his works are this sort of cartographic fantasy of proletarianised homosexual blokes rampaging around London. This is on sale in any Waterstones. Books called C and S and F and read. No, I've looked at the covers and I've read the theory, did we? But the theory is important in a way because at the end of the assault on culture, he endorses class war. Now, class war is a group that emerged in the early 1980s and it's led by an anarchist called Ian Bowden. And they do believe in Bakunin's ideas, total war upon the state. When Bakunin was asked, what is anarchy? He said, total revolution against God. And that is what anarchism believes, total revolt against all ideas of transcendence. Total idea of revolt against all ideas of hierarchy. Pull it down, destroy it. There's a famous story about Bakunin in E.H. Carr's, a Soviet Philip writer, biography. Bakunin's riding along, because he was an aristocrat.